Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another live episode of The Roots Matter, where news, politics, secularism, and social justice collide. I am your host, Cynthia McDonald, and thanks for joining us live. Thank you for everybody who happened to join us. I see that there's a couple of people that's already in the chat. Do me a favor, please like this live video, share to your social media platforms, and make sure that during and after the show is over, comment in the section below. Helps us all with the algorithm type things that the YouTubies love to see, and encourage people now specifically to join the live so that they can go ahead and be part of the conversation. I'm super excited to round up the last Sunday of this month of Black History with my good girlfriend, Miss Mandisa Thomas from the Black Nonbelievers, president and founder, where we will be talking about Gil Scott-Heron and protest songs, our second inception of this particular series. We're going to be doing some more as time goes on. Now, before we actually get into the show, I just want to give some time to acknowledge an icon in the civil rights movement and also the Black Power movement that has recently passed away. That will be the Reverend Jesse Jackson not Jr. Jesse Jackson Jr. is still alive, but his father, Jesse Jackson, has passed away. He died at 84 years old earlier this week. And I have a special edition of Cynthia's Corner dedicated to the Reverend Jesse Jackson. So let's go ahead and hear it.
When we talk about the passing of Jesse Jackson, we're not just talking about a man. We're talking about a movement voice that refused to whisper. Jesse Jackson stood in the streets with Dr. King. He helped carry forward the fight after the cameras left. From Selma to Chicago to Washington, he pushed the idea that civil rights weren't just about laws. They were about power, access, and dignity. He founded Operation Push and later the Rainbow Coalition, reminding America that justice isn't a single issue struggle. It's workers, it's Black communities, it's immigrants, it's the poor, it's all of us. And when he ran for president in the 1980s, he didn't just run to win. He ran to expand who counted in American democracy. He forced the country to see Black political power not as symbolic, but as real. Jesse Jackson believed that protests should lead to policy, and that the fight for justice doesn't retire just because it gets inconvenient. So today isn't about just mourning him. It's about asking whether we still have the courage to pick up what he carried. Because history doesn't move on its own. People move it. And Jesse Jackson moved it forward.
I may be poor, but I am somebody. I may be on welfare, but I am somebody. I may be in jail, but I am somebody. I may be uneducated, but I am somebody. I am Black, beautiful, proud. I must be respected. I must be protected. I am somebody. Right on.
Rest in peace, Jesse Jackson.
Rest in peace, Reverend Jesse Jackson. We are grateful to you, the accomplishments that you have set forth, and also keeping hope alive, I remember watching Jesse Jackson as a child with both of his runs in 1984 and 1988. I remember the Keep Hope Alive speech when he actually said it at the DNC. I I am in Chicago, so I'm super familiar and have attended Operation Push and Rainbow Coalition meetings here in the city. And I will definitely say that regardless of any type of issues that he has had as a human being, the work and the things that he has achieved cannot be denied. And for that, we say thank you. And again, rest in peace. Okay. Well, guys, it's time for us to go ahead and get into our conversation. Before we go ahead and do that, I'd just like to introduce you to our special guest for this evening. We are joined by the president and founder of the Black Nonbelievers, Miss Mandisa Thomas. She is back to do our second installment of Protest Songs. Please, if you are living under a rock and you don't know who Mandisa Thomas is, I don't know what to tell you. But guess what? Everybody, please welcome Miss Mandisa Thomas. Hey, Mandy, how you
Hey,
doing?
how is it going? It is good to be back for
Yes.
this last, this inception of the Roots Matter.
Yes, ma'am.
So, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Great. I'm so glad that you are here to actually be able to do this show with us today. I am super excited to actually do this particular portion. I know that we kind of teased it the last time that you were here, like, hey, should we talk about this particular person named Gil Scott-Heron?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Not as known as some of the other people who have that we talked about previously, like Billie Holiday, Nina Simone, and also Marvin Gaye. But his contribution to the protest music genre cannot be denied. Would you say so?
Well, I would actually, I would argue, or I would contend that he's actually probably more well known than
Mm.
some of the previous, because he was actually very, he was sampled by a lot of hip hop artists. He is, or maybe just in like maybe just in like urban, like and maybe in urban areas. But yeah, no, I think he is probably more well known and definitely more well regarded
Mm-hmm.
because of his music, because of his words, and because
Mm-hmm.
of his revolutionary stance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there are a lot of people. I think more of us, especially those of us who are familiar with, like Black music and the Black Power movement.
Mm-hmm.
More of us know about Gil Scott-Heron than
Yeah.
than others. So I would say that. I mean, that's just me. I think that he is more well known than he might, than we might think. So,
Well,
yeah.
I think it's safe to say this then. Those who are familiar with Gil Scott Heron, especially, those who have been raised in the social conscious movement like yourself, know
Mhm.
him,
Yeah.
very familiar with his work, very familiar with his stances on things and how he really contributed to music, to poetry, to social justice, especially at that particular time period during the 70s and part of the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Um, I would say like wider, but widely. When I say that, not as known, widely as far as like audiences that may not necessarily be as familiar or even have been an integral part of the Black conscious and the Black
Right.
power movement may not be as familiar with him.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's get people familiar with him if they are not. If
Yeah.
you are familiar with him, like Mandisa, because she knows all things black, because she's black, y'all.
Blickety
She's
black.
black, y'all. She's bleeding the black, and that black, y'all. She's bigger black, the black, and that you back, yo. And she's black, and she's back. Okay. Okay, we got that out the way. But yes, but for those who may not necessarily be familiar with Gil Scott Heron, I'll give you a little bit of background on him. So Gilbert Scott-Heron, born in April 1st, 1949, and then passed away on May 27, 2011, was an American jazz poet, singer, musician, and author, and he is known for his work as a spoken word performer in the 1970s and 80s. His collaborative efforts with musician Brian Jackson fused jazz, blues, and soul with lyrics relative to social and political issues of the time. Delivered in both rapping and melismatic vocal styles, he referred to himself as a blues sociologist, his own term for a scientist who is concerned with the origin of the blues. His poem, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, delivered over a jazz soul beat, is considered a major influence on hip hop music. Scott Heron's music, particularly on the albums Pieces of a Man and Winter in America during the early 1970s, influenced and foreshadowed later African American music genres, including hip hop and neo soul. His recording work received much critical acclaim, especially for The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. AllMusic, John Bush called him one of the most important progenitors of rap music, starting his aggressive, no-nonsense street poetry inspired a legion of intelligent rappers, while his engaging songwriting skills place him square in the R&B charts later in his career. Okay, yes. So that's in a nutshell, people. Gil Scott-Heron. And we're going to go ahead and talk about his music. I would definitely say we're going to be going over The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, one of his more famous works. We're also going to be talking about Mandisa's favorite song by him called Show Business. And then my favorite song by him, The Bottle. Okay? All right. So you ready to get started?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and start with The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. Just a little bit. I'm going to play a little bit of the song, and then we'll just go over a bit of the background, and then we'll discuss. So here is The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. And you all be dear hearts, and let me know and make sure that you all tell me if you guys can hear. Please and thank you.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Mendel Rivers to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nubs. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner. The revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on reports from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still lifes of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that he had been saving for just the right occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hills.
All right, guys, I'm just going to let you know right now that the revolution will not be televised. As far as like the link is concerned, if you want to hear the entire and the entirety of it will definitely be
You will not be able
in the
to
show
stay
notes
home,
below, so
brother.
please make sure you all
You will not be
listen
able
to
to
it.
plug in,
So
turn on, and
let me
cop out.
let me give you guys
You
a
will
little
not be
bit
able
of
to lose
background
yourself
about
on
this,
Skag
we'll
and
go
skip
ahead
out
and
for
get into our
bid during
discussion.
commercials
So
because the
the
revolution will not be televised.
is
The
the
revolution will not be
seminal
televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by
1971
Xerox in
spoken
4
word
parts
jazz poem
without commercial
and
interruptions.
song
The
by Gil
revolution will not show
Scott-Heron,
you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle
criticizing
and
the
leading a charge
corporate
by John.
media sanitation of political struggle. It argues that real revolution, social change, is an active, I was struggling to get active out, grassroots process that happens in the streets and minds of people, not a passive commercialized spectacle broadcast on television. So, Mandisa, please, my darling, please give me your thoughts.
Yes, and I do I do love The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. And interesting fact, I always thought that that song was done by the Last Poets. I which was very interesting because of course, the Last Poets had a very, very similar style.
Mhm.
They did a lot of spoken word. Their song, I think famously was the N word, right? So, um,
The N
yeah,
word song, as I like to call it.
yes, the N word song.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
I always thought that at first that was the Last Poets, but of course, as we you know as we've seen with like the Black Panthers, as
Mhm.
we've seen with the revolutionary groups at that time, it was very, very scary to see Black folks rising up.
Yeah.
And when we think about what agencies like the FBI did with COINTELPRO, and other counter intelligence measures to take down these Black empowerment groups,
Yeah.
um, that we know that that was very, very scary. But I will also take it back to 1963 in Birmingham,
Mhm.
Alabama, when the entire country or the world first saw the police turning the dogs and the hoses onto Black folks as they were marching peacefully.
Yeah.
Because at first, before television, all you had were newspapers and periodicals, and those were
Right.
usually spun around, in favor of it looking like, they were the criminals. And we
Mhm.
talked about this last episode of Strange Fruit and how lynchings we were talking about Nina Simone and Billie Holiday, and about how lynchings were made into postcards and gleefully reported in newspapers. But I think what it was a turning point in 1963, not the organization turning point, that sucky organization. But and we're on a political show, so I can say that. But
Yes, you can.
yes,
All
yes,
day. You
yes,
better. Yes.
yeah. So I that was very much a shift when it came to civil rights and the civil rights movement, was for people to see that on television, where you could see, because remember Kennedy, Dr. King went to President Kennedy before, and I wouldn't say he was almost laughed out of his office, but he wasn't taken very as seriously until you saw what happened on TV.
Mhm.
And I think it's important that, yes, there are certain aspects of revolutions that will not be televised and probably will never be, because a lot of the revolutionary work often happens out off cameras.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, yes, I think for and I have to really, really listen to. It's been a while since I've listened to The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. I actually wrote a Patreon post about revolution being fetishized, and that's a public post for those of you who would like to go back and look at it. I
Do
wrote it
you
back in 2021. Um,
do you have a little bit of it that you can share with us?
Revolution is fetishized.
Yeah.
Um, well, the gist of it is that what revolution looks like
Uh-huh.
there is sort of like a fantasy piece, right? Because once we see something visually, most of us as human beings are visual beings. We like what we see, especially in this age of social media.
Mm-hmm.
We consume a lot of content. So there are a lot of things that we see. And I on my TikTok, I posted part of the protest, like the speech that the protest of my son Miles and his high school classmates did when they walked out for the ICE protest. It
Yeah.
did get a lot of it did get some traction, not that that was what I was like intending on doing, but I think what my spin on it is that now that with what has occurred and all of the changes that have been made as a result of people sacrificing their lives for change, whether it is policy, whether it is community, all of those things are important. But I think there are some people who become sort of, they are not as familiar as what it takes to be revolutionary.
Mm.
um Oftentimes we see it and we're like, oh, this is great, because we often don't see, or many people really don't understand what it took to get to that point, right? We love the end result, but we don't understand the process. We don't appreciate the process of what it takes. So there is there are people who think they're being revolutionary in their actions, and they really aren't. And I think that
Yeah.
now it just becomes, and I could give like a bunch of examples,
Mm-hmm.
especially if we talk about like the manosphere and stuff like that. People who think they can just say something contrarian or contradictory, and they think, oh, all of a sudden they're just doing something great. But
Yeah.
no, it really isn't. So
No, it's not.
yeah, so there's that. I think that's what I was, and taking what I because I posted Gil Scott-Heron's "Revolution Will Not Be Televised,"
Mm-hmm.
on that post, but I just said revolution is fetishized because
Mm.
of the like the how it has transformed over decades,
Mm-hmm.
and many of us, we now benefit, and we have benefited, even though the this administration is trying to take us back.
Yeah.
Many people have benefited from what others have done, the revolutionary actions of what others have done, so that we've never had to do it.
Yeah.
There are still things that we face, but it's like now it seems easier, and it never was, and it never is.
Right.
But I think that it's just very and I don't want to ramble, but
You're good.
I I do, of course, there are certain aspects of, especially when it comes to people of color, Black folks, Black women. Of course, our revolution is they definitely do not want to televise that.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't want to see Black women being joyful. They don't want us, you know, seeing us truly, like in our, and I think about, when I think about revolution, I think about also it being on a visible collective scale publicly, but also what that means internally for us,
Yeah.
because white supremacy has conditioned many of us to hate the way we look, to think that
Mm.
we are unhealthy. And I think I just did something revolutionary with the pictures that I posted, right? But
Yeah.
and I think that it takes so many forms.
Yeah.
And of course, for the time that the song was produced,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's certain as parts of the revolution that definitely they definitely don't want televised,
Yeah.
because it would make people rise up
Yeah.
even more.
Yeah. I think about this one point, and then I wanted to, kind of go back to, some of the things that you were saying specifically about, like, the expansion of what Black Revolution really means, right? But there's one portion where he says that there will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. He said that twice. There
Hmm.
will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on the rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still lifes of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that has that he has been saving for just the proper occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, and Hooterville Junction will no longer be so damn relevant, and women will not take will not care if Dick finally got down with Jane. That says a lot. I mean, like, I know that he was speaking specifically of iconography that was very much so relevant to like the 70s, right?
Yeah.
And like, speaking of like Whitney Young and also like the pigs, if people are not familiar, that was a code word for the police, right?
Hmm.
Um but um but and it's also like, he's talking about ANC colors, like, when
African National Congress.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep,
And also, it's important to note that, like, the Whitney Youngs and the Roy Wilkins were considered the establishment
yes,
leaders.
yes,
And also, it's very interesting that a lot of them criticized Malcolm X, and he did so in kind.
mm-hmm,
There was that friction
yes,
between the leaders of that time,
yeah,
who, he criticized for being too corporate and being
yeah,
too, and they did uphold respectability politics,
they
or
did.
what. That's not to say that they did not, um that they did not, because I know Roy Wilkins is out of New York. There's
Mm-hmm,
a park named after him in
mm-hmm,
Queens that we used to go to camp, where we used to go to camp. But that doesn't mean that they didn't make any real good accomplishments, but they were the establishment Negroes
yeah,
back then. And they definitely looked down on leaders like Malcolm.
yeah. That was
So
a thing, especially when you were looking at the civil rights movement versus the Nation of Islam. Mostly the more prevalent picturesque leaders was Malcolm X versus Martin Luther King Jr.
mhm.
And how at one point you did have uh, Malcolm X call Martin Luther King a coon. you know
Mhm.
and but it seems like towards later on in life they actually came to some type of consensus because they both were of the mind that they were trying to help the people. They were trying to help black people. They were trying to achieve liberation, freedom for black folk. It's just that their methods were different,
Yes.
right? And even like when we traverse from the civil rights movement into the uh, Black Power movement. Black Power was mostly about, it was definitely identity politics, but it was more than just, I'm just going to vote a certain way. It was more about Black empowerment. Black is beautiful. Black is wonderful. Black is king. We're going back to the natural. We're not going to try to process our hair any longer. We're
Mhm.
going to definitely garner to things that we find as we're basically taking back our culture because it was stolen from us when our families and our ancestors were taken from violently from the continent of Africa and brought to the United States to be forced to work for the white tea people. This is what we are um seeing now as we are in this particular moment. And even though that we did get landmark legislation with the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Civil Right the Voters' Rights Act of 1965, and then the Fair Housing Act of 1968 under Lyndon B. Johnson, working with Martin Luther King Jr. After the assassination of not Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy did get assassinated in 1960. I'm specifically talking about his brother Jackie. Jack! JFK.
Yeah.
Yes, this is, it was still, even though you got the legislation, there was still really, rough things that was happening within the time period of, Black folks. I mean, they were still struggling for change. They were still struggling for liberation. They were still seeing that, yeah, we got this legislation, but our social economic status hasn't changed. We're still living in the ghetto. Redlining is still a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're still having a hard time getting jobs. We're still having our brothers specifically coming back from the Vietnam War and getting strung out because they don't have like the necessary social safety net programs in order to keep them from falling into poverty. All these different things that are happening at that time period. And it got to the point where, like, black folks is like, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And what I really think that Gil Scott-Heron did in the revolution will not be televised is really um, express in spoken word the frustrations that black people were facing at that particular time period because of all these things that was going on. And to your point, when we're like taking the work that was expressed back in 1970, 1971, and we're applying it today, there is still a liberation that has yet to be achieved in mass when it comes to black people. I mean, like, we're still dealing not only with social and also economic suppression, voting suppression. I was reading today, Mandisa, about how the Department of Defense banned the color purple from their libraries, and other works of from African American authors, right? And we're still dealing with this uphill battle, but also internally not we're dealing with these issues where and I would just say this has a lot to do with our conservative out leanings as a people, including
Mm-hmm.
our religious beliefs, where we are still balking against being free to express ourselves, sexually. We are still having a very high issue when it comes to how we relate to LGBTQIA plus people, even though LGBTQIA plus people are in our community. You know, there is still that aspect, and then we're still dealing with diaspora wars.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot to unpack when it comes to what true revolution looks like for black folks, not only just as black Americans, foundational black Americans, freedmen descendants, American descendants of chattel slavery, however you want to call it, versus people who come from the Caribbean, versus people who come from the continent, people who come from Central America, South America, etc., etc. There is still a point where there's vices that have been placed on us that has not quite allowed us to really get to that portion where liberation is something that has been achieved.
Right. And it also speaks to how people, when you hear the word liberation and
Mhm.
how it is just not simply linear, right?
Right.
There are different forms of liberation, like you
Yeah.
said, sexual liberation,
Hmm.
community, and also a collective liberation
Right.
that takes on many, many forms. And I think that there are still quite a few, many of us who don't really get that it takes, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You mentioned the religious piece, which of course, we I definitely agree there that liberation, and it's ongoing,
Yeah.
especially when we are still unpacking and dismantling white supremacy, oppression, systemic injustice. There are so many forms of liberation and
Yeah.
that we have to contend with, and it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It doesn't exist. These are things that we have to be able to work on together if we are truly dedicated to it.
Right.
And just thinking about taking it back when you said that that the Department of Defense
Yes.
banned the color purple.
Hmm.
And there have been many banned books over the years, because there are folks who are scared. They are scared that certain writings will ignite people, that there are certain movies now, of course, that will ignite people, that will cause people to think and be like, wait a minute.
Right.
Wait a minute.
Right.
That's the revolution that folks that folks like that really don't want to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the one where people really do wake up and they start thinking and they start questioning, and they don't want that.
Yeah, you listen. I didn't get
Mhm.
my collar because I was asking too many questions in ministerial class. Come on now, somebody. I
Mhm.
want my collar, by the way. I don't give a fuck. I passed every goddamn test. You should give me my fucking collar and give me my god. Okay, I'm sorry, my bad, guys. I'm still a little bitter, even though that happened almost 20 years ago. But it don't matter. I feel some kind of way, regardless. Yes, there is so much still to unpack when it comes to what liberation means, especially amongst Black people, as a collective, right? It's a lot to unpack when we even use the word liberation when it comes to humankind, right?
Mhm.
I mean, just think about, like, you had these conversations before as my son is running back and forth in the hallway like he done lost his goddamn mind, that when you are talking to people who happen not to be African American and they have been educated on a piece of history, and then once they get educated, it changes their mind and even how they would even interact with the community because of something that they were not privy to previously. I mean, like, I know you had these conversations before.
Oh, absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. I think that when we when we speak and when we present, definitely someone always learns something.
Yeah.
Something new. And that's the point. I mean, we're all
Mhm.
still learning things. There's still information, and I'm going to bring up some a note that when we talk about the next song that I just learned, which I think is very interesting. So
Mhm.
so yeah, I we're all are supposed to be still students of life, and
Yes.
taking in information and deciding whether it's good, pertinent, and good for us,
Hmm.
and that it's not a one size fit all type of thing, but there can be a consensus when it comes to collectively what it looks like and what has been demonstrated to help us be
Right.
more revolutionary, what
Yeah.
it means for us to really be more liberated.
Yeah.
I think there is a collective, and not to fall back on like the whole the Afrocentric upbringing, right? The collective consciousness. I think
Yeah.
that's not these are things that I think is still important for us
Hmm.
to try to come to and try to have a better understanding of, when it comes to our communities and our liver, and even those who have documented that, like Gil Scott-Heron, because his work, his music, his poetry is a documentation, and it is a chronicle of history and our
Yes.
community that, like you said, it was relevant then, it's definitely still relevant now.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we are talking history here.
Yes. Our favorite subject.
That's right. History and music.
History
Two
and
of them.
music, favorite subjects. Yes, it is. Well, guys, I think that is a perfect segue for us to go ahead and get into our next song, which is called Show Business. Well, not necessarily business, is actually business, but I just said business because of reasons. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started, and let me press the little music icon. I'm talking through this new technology that we're dealing with today. It's new for me, guys. This is new for me. I actually have power of the buttons. Whoa! Okay, I feel so empowered right now. All right, people, here we go. Show business.
Well, they'll guide your career for only 95%. Well, that leaves enough for fronts like three-piece suits and pays rent. Sing the blues and pay your dues and not know who you are. Make you wonder why so many just don't understand. Well, do you really want to be in show business? The instant high and constant come and go business. Got you hanging out in places you got no business. And people sell their soul, wanna be in the show business, wanna be in the show business. It's alright with me. Yeah, it's alright with me. And just as long as you know you're up and down a ladder of success that runs both ways, and you see all the worst and the best, damn near every day. Yeah, fans and fans and the one night stand, fill your mind with doubt, and on closing day you lucky to say, down but still not out. Well, do you really want to be in the show business? The instant high and constant come and go business. Got you proving exactly how much you don't know business. And people sell their soul, wanna be in the show business, 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 wanna be in the show business. It's alright with me. Well, dear got your career for only 95%. Well, that leaves enough for fronts like three-piece suits and pays the rent. Sing the blues and pay your dues and not know who you are. Make you wonder why so many people want to be a star. Well, do you really want to be in show business?
Okay, there we go. I didn't know if you needed me to just like kind of go get in and just start talking about the songs.
Yes. Looks like that we were lost for a moment or two. I'm still looking there. Okay, I believe that we're back up and running. Let me see. I'm just going to check in with the chat, guys. If you can see us, hear us, please say yes, we can in the chat for a favor. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm just going to just ask, just let us know that you guys can see us and hear us. I know that I'm looking at the feed in YouTube right now, and I do see that we are there. Let's make sure that everybody, if you are in the chat still, make sure that you all can say yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mickey. Mikey. Mikey always I give Mikey a mess problems because I keep on messing up his name. At first I was doing it on accident. Now I just think I just do it on purpose. I still love you. I still love you, Mikey.
Shame on you for that sin. Shout out, Mikey. Shout out,
Mikey.
Shout out
family.
everyone who is in the chat. Shout out, Kelly.
Shout out to everybody. Yes, it's I do it out of love and admiration. I really do.
Don't believe that, y'all.
No, Mikey is in the Chicagoland area with me. I feel obligated because he is younger than me, and I look at him as a younger sibling that I have to mess with him. But as far as my love and admiration for Mikey, he is all good. Make sure you guys. Oh, shameless plug. Make sure you guys tune into the Ben podcast. They do broadcast live throughout the week, so make sure you guys check that out. And also make sure you check out Neil, the 604 Atheist's Deconversion Stories, because Mikey actually does co-producing on that one as well. So there you go. See? Love. All right. So let's go ahead and get back into the conversation. I know that we had a glitch over there, but thank you everybody for staying with us. We really do appreciate it. So we're talking about show business. It is a critical funk-driven track by Gil Scott-Heron and Brian Jackson, featured on their 1970s collaborative albums that critiques the instant high, fickle nature of the entertainment industry. The song highlights the exploitation of artists, the pressure to sell one's soul, and the fleeting nature of fame. All right, Mandisa, take it away because I know you got thoughts.
Listen, one of, a couple of the most noted um lyrics on here is, "You're only as important to them as your latest hit. There is a precarious position for a plastic king. That's a precarious position for a plastic king to sit." And
Mm.
sadly, and I think this actually spans across like racial lines. It's definitely more of it's an economic thing. It
Yeah.
is an exploitation thing. And for you and I who grew up singing, we grew up performing, and especially in Black communities where oftentimes a way out of the neighborhood is you can, is through entertainment, whether it is sports, whether it is through music, whether it is through any form. And unfortunately, that is a business where money rules, and it is also exploitive of people's lack of knowledge around like contracts. Look at what we've seen over the years, and so many recording artists whom you thought had so much money because they were famous and popular, and you find out later on that that their contracts were almost draconian, right? They didn't have like hardly any money, and that it is exploitive of what people are willing to do at the hands of certain executives, certain producers, especially women who are subject to all types of treatment, all sorts of sexual coercion
Yeah.
and abuse. These are things that span all across, whether it's music, whether it's in Holly, whether it's movies, whether it is, oh my gosh, it is so it is this is a thing that is, and he really, I mean, he just didn't lie. He
Yeah.
just did not lie about that.
Yeah.
And those, like you and I have a deep appreciation for certain types of music. We like entertainment that resonates, that will educate, that is more than just mainstream.
Mhm.
However,
That's
most
because we are the
of
hoity-toity Negroes on
well,
the
yeah,
screen right now.
I consider myself a music snob. I'm unapologetic.
This is
I
the
am unapologetic.
hoity-toity music snob
Yes,
Negroes right now.
yes. I am very unapologetically a snob. But
Yes.
because
Indeed.
they tend to be can be chewed up and spit out, even at times by their own fan base.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't it like recently their what was Glorilla's sister were on
Yes.
Instagram basically trying to shake her sister down for some money. I think she like wanted like over like $33,000 from her.
Fantasia's father apparently is
Yeah.
over there sitting up there talking about, how she doesn't do this and criticizing her. And it's just like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, like, what is with y'all? And
Yeah.
this idea that not only do you have like executives trying to exploit you, you also have
Hmm.
family members who think they're counting, and they're counting your pockets.
Yeah.
You are
They
expected to. I think of Gerald Levert. Uh,
yeah. Oh, wow.
Even though his dad, Eddie Levert, was in the OJs,
Hmm.
and how, and I mean, I think granted he had like a lot of kids, but
He did.
Gerald Levert was Gerald Levert was supporting almost his entire family.
Yeah.
And there are so many artists, like we think about MC Hammer, right?
Yeah.
MC Hammer, who was,
MC Hammer wanted
woo,
to employ the entire black race, okay?
mhm,
And they were all on stage with him dancing to Too Legit to Quit.
right,
I
right.
mean, like I respect the brother's hustle, and especially with him trying to pull up a bunch of people. But you know what I think about this whole idea of black entertainers specifically um doing their stretching themselves thin in order for them to support family and neighborhoods and things of that nature goes back to this whole thing about how we as a people are not adjacent to wealth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it is, and not to say that this doesn't happen to other groups, but
Mm-hmm.
when we're looking at the majority of people who happen to be millionaires and billionaires in our community, and it's not a lot of them. You can, especially when it comes to billionaires, you can literally count them on one hand. It's through
Mm-hmm.
entertainment. I think it's only like maybe one or two that got their money as billionaires, through other industries.
Mm-hmm.
But you think of like the founder of Ebony and Jet. That was entertainment, right?
Yeah.
You think of the brother that founded BET. I can't think of his name right now.
Not Bob Johnson. I don't think it was it
No,
no.
no, not it wasn't Bob Johnson. I can't
Yeah.
really. Bob Johnson was the was Ebony and Jet founder. He was one of the first multi-millionaires. I don't think
Yeah.
that he actually got into billionaire status, but the brother that founded BET and sold it to Viacom, which eventually went to CBS and Paramount, became a billionaire from that sale.
Mm-hmm.
And he got his money through entertainment. And I mean, it's a host of, I mean, like even like people, and I've heard this trope before concerning like, when you're talking about Jay-Z and Beyonce. Well, they are the examples of what Black people could do, as far as like making like all this money. But I mean, but how many people that's within our group alone that are artists that don't necessarily make it to that particular pinnacle? I mean, it's like it was 1 out of 1,000. If even and
Right.
when you even look at the probability, I mean, so the it's been pretty much the 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 notion that Black people um have basically here in the states been able to become like some type of notoriety, getting to some portion of notoriety through entertainment, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's being an athlete, whether it's being a singer, whether it's being a rapper, a dancer. You look at Tyler Perry, it's all through entertainment. I mean, not necessarily like because they are like giants in the tech industry, or
Mm-hmm.
or they, or I mean, like the woman who basically came up with the mRNA vaccine is a Black woman, but she's not a
Mm-hmm.
multimillionaire. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
mean, like, so this is the thing that has been the issue, like as far as like, okay, well, this is the way that you get your foot through the door in order for you to gain notoriety. However, as you stated before, there's this exploitation of their talent and of their abilities and their influence. I think about how um the guy who did the Beatles guy, what is his name, Paul McCartney,
Mm-hmm.
was mad for years at Michael Jackson for buying the Beatles catalog.
Yeah.
You know, for years. He told him, he's like, yeah, it's gonna be up for auction soon. Me and the guys, we're gonna get together, we're gonna bid on it, yada yada yada. Michael had a record breaking sales from the Thriller album, record,
Mm-hmm.
made money off of, some of his other collaborations that he did with Motown, and also, other his Pepsi deal with his brothers, etc. And it's like, you know what? Y'all taught me you taught me the business, so I'm about to do, make a real business move. And then that's when he bought the
Mm-hmm.
catalog, and that like skyrocketed his worth, as far as like, in business itself. And Paul McCartney, at first they used to call each other friends, and Paul was like,
Yeah. The
Michael
girl is
Jackson,
mine and
yeah,
say,
say, say,
that.
say, you fuck that guy. It's basically what he said. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but like, but at mass, especially even like, with Black folk, that is not a move that a lot of people made. And
Yeah.
even like, I believe that Robin said in the chat when Eddie Murphy did his documentary with Netflix,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
how he buried a lot of like icons like Red Fox, like Richard Pryor, like, I mean, like people who were giants in the industry, but because a lot of their assets were not protected,
Yeah. And in all fairness, some of them did not protect them.
No,
But
true,
yeah,
true. I
yeah,
mean,
there
but
were,
like,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, but it's like, a lot of times, like, you got these guys that's coming out of the ghetto,
yeah,
coming out
that's
of
a,
these, as
yeah.
situations where they are, nil poor,
Yes,
and
and that's what
they,
I was saying earlier
yeah,
about being, like being vulnerable,
yeah,
being vulnerable to these contracts. They're them seeing a certain dollar and thinking, oh, well, this is
mm-hmm,
a whole lot of money because they are,
right.
and that being taken advantage of.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, just thinking about, like, the things that happened to Megan Thee Stallion. I think that Mikey mentioned a 360 deal. She had a 360 deal. Damn near broke her. I'm glad
Mm.
that she was able to come back from that. But I mean, yeah, that was definitely the case. Like, I think of, like, and shout out to, like, independent artists like,
Oh
Duran
yeah.
Bernard, who stayed independent, and and basically would make his moves on a certain on in other ways in order for him to, like, be able to keep his name, as far as, like, the work that he has done going forward. But even he talked about how he contributed a lot to other people's works, and
Mm-hmm.
barely to no times really even got recognition, let alone paid for the work that he did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, and when you look at, like, Bernard, Duran Bernard, I mean, he is a phenomenal singer. Like, he's ridiculous, but like, but unfortunately, this was the thing that has been a plague, I would definitely say, in the Black communities when it comes to entertainers for years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, hey, what was, like, the big fight between the 90s, the mid to late 90s, between Warner Brothers and Prince?
Mm-hmm. Oh
To the Yeah,
yes.
he, to the point where he
Yes.
had to give up his name for a minute,
Yep. He sure
because they
did.
had, yeah, because they had control over all of that. And he was a huge advocate for artists to control their creative work,
Mm-hmm.
you know and I would definitely say that going forward, it was the fights that a lot of those artists of the past did, that even made a way for people like Ryan Coogler to
Yeah.
get the deal that he got with Warner Brothers when it came to Sinners. Like,
Mm-hmm.
within that 25-year period after Sinners was released, all of that property, intellectual property, creative property, everything goes completely back to him.
Mm-hmm.
That is a deal that no one got but him,
Mm.
even his white counterparts, you
Yeah.
know. So it is definitely, and I know that, like, when people think of protest songs, they mostly just think of, like, the songs that you would, sing on the marching trail, right?
Mm-hmm.
While you are protesting, and things of that nature, or even, like, artists responding to, the moment and the
Right.
movements at that
Right.
time. But this in of itself is a protest
It
song,
is. It is.
because like, we're protesting against exploitation,
Yeah.
and the exploitation that definitely happens to artists and their work,
Yep.
from big business and capitalistic organizations that want to control everything about you, make money off of you, and then in turn just basically, leave you out to dry. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
how many times do you just think about, like, all the people who lost their livelihoods and
Yep.
and um and whatnot, when it came to the work that they did, like all those artists that was with Chess Records,
Mm-hmm.
you
Even
know.
Motown. I mean,
Yeah,
for Motown, even with it becoming the giant that it was,
yeah,
very exploitive
yeah,
of its artists. I know Stevie Wonder had to do something similar to Prince. They had, and then even when the Jackson Five was at Motown, and then when I guess after their biggest hits, and then they started getting older, and then they weren't doing as well on Motown.
mm-hmm,
And I think it was a while for them to get out up under Motown and Barry
yeah,
Gordy and Motown. We
yeah,
did our Diana Ross and the Supremes, and we love Diana Ross,
mm-hmm,
the icon that she has become. But
mm-hmm,
look at what happened with Florence Ballard, who
yeah,
basically had to move back to Detroit and ended up dying in squalor
Yes.
because of the exploitation of the Supremes,
Mm-hmm.
and just so far too many tragic stories
Yes.
of artists and athletes and singers who have been and it is an industry that is just so you can go in there being sort of definitely innocent, right, and
Right.
exposes you to so many adult things and we
Yeah.
look at Diddy, right. You have
Mm.
people who come in there wanting to make something make something out of their talent and make a career
Mhm.
out of it, and they just end up getting sucked into so many different things.
Yeah.
And so this is unfortunately something that has happened time and time and time and time again. And like
Mm-hmm.
that's a part of yes, that is a part of protest that like you said, that is often that is often under that is under discussed.
Yes.
And I think that's probably, I mean, I love the melody of that song as well. And
Mm-hmm.
and just to point to what I just learned that Mr. Cheeks from the Lost Boys is Gil Scott-Heron's nephew.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And also a fun fact, Mr. Cheeks was married to one of my childhood acquaintances.
Hmm.
I think they had like one or two children together, but
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, he the Lost Boys stayed with the, sort of with the hood girls, but not saying that that was necessarily but they kind of stayed true to those roots. But but yeah, shut up, Cynthia. But
I didn't say that. That was
I know,
you.
but I'm
Shout out
just
to the hood
saying.
girls. All
Yes,
right.
yeah. Shout out to us hood girls.
Shout out to us hood girls. That's right. Word to
Shout
your
out
mother.
to us hood girls
Yes,
for real,
ma'am.
for
Yes,
real.
ma'am.
But
Yes,
but yeah, no, but yes, I just read up that Mr. Cheeks, who is the lights, camera, action,
ma'am.
his the song that he is most famous for, like mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
That is his nephew. Gil Scott
Mm-hmm.
Heron is his uncle. And I said, wow, how about that? So,
Yeah.
speaking of entertainment, right? Speaking of,
Mm-hmm.
sort of kind of carrying on in show business, right? And I think it's important that even for anyone, whether you're an entertainer, whether you're an activist, it is important that the legacies of folks go beyond just name only.
Yeah.
That folks are being cared for and supported before we find out that they have passed away, and they have passed, or that they are struggling. It can't just be that, well, they were such a, they were so iconic, and they were so well known and so well loved, but while they were alive, that their talents were not as appreciated as they
Yeah.
should have been. Because I mean, there are like, in the entertainment industry, it paves the way for fashion, it paves the way for folks who style clothes and hair, and so it is a business that can reproduce a level of success for a lot of people.
Yes.
But it has to be where it is sort of like it has to be more communal than it
Right.
has been, and not just simply that the few folks are making billions off of the people who are producing the work and producing the art.
Right.
So that's a whole nother thing. That
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and like, and shout out to Gil for actually bringing light, this very much needed um, discussion when it comes to exploitation of artists and their work in the entertainment.
Hmm.
And shout out to those artists who heeded that and kept that conversation going throughout the years. I look forward to the day, and this is, Cynthia's utopian society where capitalism no longer rules, that, people are able to not only be celebrated for their work, but also be paid properly for the work that they do.
Hmm.
And having those guardrails in place so that the exploitation of that is not easily done. Unfortunately, and in mass, exploitation of Black artists has been a huge thing throughout decades in the United States. Thinking of artists that were on the Chitlin District that
Uh-huh.
had their, in the Chitlin District and in Chitlin Entertainment, having their work stolen by white artists,
Yes.
and never getting paid for or even credit for the work that they have done. You think of "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog"
Oh, yes.
by was it Big Mama Thornton,
Mm-hmm.
who sang the hell out of that damn song. She was, a Chitlin district artist, basically, and basically doing the Chitlin circuit, rather. I'm sorry, not district, Chitlin circuit. She did, and that was one of her songs. And who famously stole it and did it on and performed it and on Ed Sullivan show, and this became a star overnight, was the king
Elvis
of rock and
Presley.
roll, Elvis Presley. You know, who my aunt, rest her rest in peace, Aunt Elnora, said that she taught him when he was in kindergarten. I don't know if that's true or not, y'all. That's what she said. That's what she said. Yeah, I taught Elvis. Did you? You sure? I don't know. I'm just saying. That's what she said. So I ain't got no way to prove that she did nor disprove what she did. I mean, she ain't show me no pictures and nothing like that. That's what she said is when we actually went to Graceland when I was 12 years old. Hey, half my family, my paternal family is from Memphis. So maybe, regardless, those things happened. I think of that movie, one of the movies that both of us, absolutely adore, The Five Heartbeats.
Yes. Oh,
Dang. you
nights
know,
like this,
I
I
wish
wish raindrops
raindrops would
would fall.
fall. Yes. but I just think about like when they were shopping for labels and
Oh,
yeah, remember that scene when they're shopping for a
yes.
label and then they go into the office and they say,
The white guys. Yes.
I love this song. What was the song that they were doing? I got nothing for loving you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they bring in. He said, I love this song, but not necessarily for this group. Bring in the Five Horsemen.
Yeah.
Sha na na.
No, ain't got no money.
Wow.
Ain't got no fancy car.
Jack.
Over the life of a millionaire. Jack.
Wow. They're looking around like, what in the hell is this?
And then for their own label to
Mhm.
put a white family on their first album.
Mhm.
And they went under a black label. I mean, it just goes to show what also the aesthetics of what these corporate executives think would work for people.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, the Five Heartbeats should be like required watching.
I agree. I agree.
Yes.
Everybody stop the stream now. No, don't
No,
stop
no,
stream
don't
right
do
now.
that.
Wait until we're done with the stream. And
Mm.
then when you're done, go to Maya Atkinson's channel, watch Bad Science, okay? And then after that, watch the Five Heartbeats. Okay, very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, to your point with the white family on the album, Motown did that.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean the when they first came out and they were still in Detroit, a lot of the albums that they had with their artists did not have the pictures of their artists in front of on the albums. It was white people, white people playing on the beach, white families having picnics, white families eating apple pie. I mean, like white families doing white shit. Yeah, that's what they did.
Yeah.
And they felt that they had to do that in order for them to be able to actually market those artists to a white audience,
Mm-hmm.
right? in order for them to be able to sell, because they felt that if they put Black artists, like the real artists who actually performed these pieces on their, on their album covers, that they would not sell simply because the artists were Black.
Mm, yeah.
So I mean, so that was, so I appreciate Robert Townsend with the Five Heartbeats, because even though, yes, it was a fictional movie, but it was in the genre that I love, which is historical fiction.
Yes, yes.
Because it definitely took things that happened at that time period within the music industry and applied it to the story. Like, even when you look at the point where they got pulled over
Yep.
by
By
those
the
classmates,
police.
yeah, by the
Yep.
police when they were touring the South, and they did
Hmm.
not have a tour bus like some of their white counterparts. They were like in a station wagon with like some random guy that was taking, well, they were random, they were working for the label that was taking them around. They got pulled over by the police, and he said, well, how do we know that you were singing a group?
Yeah.
You
Why don't
know,
y'all sing
why don't y'all
something?
saying something,
Yep.
and that actually happened. I forgot which group it happened to. I think it happened to the Temptations, either the Temptations or the Dells, because I know that the
Hmm.
story was loosely based
Yeah,
on the
I think it
Dells.
was the Dells. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it was based on the Dells. And so these are the kind of things that happen, and they had to do things of that nature in order for them to survive.
Yeah.
And on top of them being already ostracized, demonized, and then also facing terror from, white domestic terrorism that was coming to these people while they were just trying to work, they were still dealing with the exploitation of the music industry in of itself.
Yes. Hmm.
It's shameful, but it's important for us to know these things. It's important for us to really understand the things that has happened, and what we had, and what we as a people had gone through, in
Hmm.
order for us to learn from it and not repeat it.
Correct.
Hmm. Final thoughts on this whole song right here, then, before we go on to the
I
next one.
it just seemed like we did a deeper dive into this one than anticipated.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think that, but the reason being is because I think that you and I share, as you stated, that we are both musicians, we are both
Hmm.
lovers of music, and entertainment,
Yes.
and and we've had people who, you know been entertainers in our family. I mean, like,
Hmm.
this is a subject matter
It
that
hits
really,
close.
it
Yes,
hits
it
home.
hits close. Yes.
Yeah, it hit home. It hit home.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even personally, I studied music in college, and I've had opportunities to try to take music and to do it more professionally. Um,
Hmm.
and I never did, for reasons, for these reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, let me go ahead and fall back. Let me go ahead and get that Bachelor of Science real quick. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
And I think it's also a good segue into the last song as well, because we talked
Hmm.
about the industry being just a cesspool of
Yeah.
so many different vices.
Yep.
And so I think it's the perfect segue into the last song.
Yes. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let me go ahead and pull up my handy dandy playbook. Well, play button rather. Everyone, thank you again for staying with us and sticking with us. This is going to be the last song that we're going to be going over today. Everyone, this is Gil Scott-Heron's The Bottle.
Oh, uno, dos, tres, cuatro. You see that black boy over there running scared, his old man in a bottle. He done quit his 9 to 5, he drank full time, and now he's living in a bottle. See that black boy over there running scared, his old man got a problem. sister, a shop was fine. She started drinking wine from the bottle. She told me, oh man committed a crime. He's doing.
All right, y'all. So that was part of In the Bottle. Again, that song, the full version is linked in the show notes below. Make sure that you guys check it out. It's one of my favorite songs by Gil Scott-Heron. I would say like one of the reasons why it's one of my favorites is because, here in the city of Wind, we are known for a certain genre of music called house music. And a lot of times, Gil Scott Heron's music would be featured in house tracks, right? So, like, sometimes it was known to kind of start out with like maybe a slower song, funk, disco, something to that effect. And then, you speed up a little bit so that you can get like, what they call four on the floor, which is the ba, 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 and then like, you probably speed up like, the beats per minute, to like 120. And then next thing you got a house track that come in like, from the bottle, right? And so I know that I had like I downloaded this one DJ who from Chicago. He's called the Diz, Victor Blackwell, and he did a mix with Gil Scott-Heron's The Bottle, and then segued it into some other iconic disco and other house tracks that really like a lot of us like who are like house heads like dig hard, right? So I remember when I first like heard The Bottle, and first off, it's funky as hell.
That bass line is everything.
Hello.
I'm such a bass head, not in the old,
Hello.
the bass line is everything on that song. I mean, seriously.
Listen, that bass line slap.
Yes.
Okay, seriously, that is a jewel in of itself.
Yeah.
And and then like you have like the ostinato that's like in the that comes from the Fender Rhodes. That's what it is, the Fender Rhodes. Throughout the song, and then like you just have like the drummer that was just like snare, a little bass, and then like and a little hi-hat. It was like a simple drum line throughout the song that that was like quintessential jazz, right?
Yes.
But Gil in of itself like brought like the blues mixed in with the soul and the funk within the way that he delivered like his lines. And I mean, like, what can you say? Like, that song is like perfect in my opinion.
I think would be the like quintessential like the acid jazz sound, right? That, or fusion jazz.
Yeah.
Fusion that really started that jazz / R&B / that funk sound. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
That in the 70s is where it really started to converge.
Yes.
Where you had the traditional jazz artists and then you had R&B coming into this, and they just really, and I mean, of course, the genres always kind of sort of mirrored each other, but you just really had that fusion of sound.
Yes.
When it came to jazz, R&B, and well, of course, would eventually be hip hop as we know it today.
Right.
Because spoken word has always been a thing since like Pangea, as we say, right? Or like at the beginning of time. But the 70s was really where those sounds really started to converge.
Yeah.
And you would hear like jazzy melodies with like upbeat tempo stuff that you could really start to dance to. And oh my gosh, it just, and those of us who really have ears for music, it just resonates with us so much because of we really do appreciate that sound and the musicianship of it all. Good.
Well, we got all up into the song itself, and I forgot to get the backlog on this day. The background on the song. All right, y'all. Okay, let's get to the background. Okay. So Okay, I gotta scroll down to my show notes, y'all, because I don't remember all this off the top of my dome. I gotta read. Okay, so the bottle. It was released in 1974 on the album Winter in America. It was by Gil Scott-Heron and Brian Jackson, and it is a funk infused social commentary inspired by Scott-Heron's observations of alcoholics in Washington, D.C. It depicts the decline of individuals into alcoholism with a poignant narrative featuring a district flute driven and Caribbean influenced sound. Maybe that's another reason why I love this song so much.
Probably. Yes.
I would definitely say that would be the case. Like, you know, that flute sound was
Oh,
very
yes.
prevalent in jazz fusion, and also, it can be found definitely in Caribbean music.
If
And
if I
you
may
know,
pivot real quick, shout out to Bobby Humphrey,
mm,
a very noted flautist,
mm,
who was famous for her song Harlem River Drive. And for
mm.
those of you who don't know, Lizzo is also a flautist.
Yeah, I was about to say, and also
Oh,
shout out to
yes.
Lizzo with her
Yes.
flouting ass. She be flouting,
Yes.
y'all.
Yes.
She be a flouting. Oh, but
Yes.
yes, yeah. Like even
That
another artist that would utilize flautists a lot in their music was John Coltrane's wife, Alice Coltrane.
mm, mm,
Yeah, we may need to discuss her music next because that sister was bad. She
yeah.
was bad.
Mhm.
But going back to the bottle,
Yes.
so not only do you have this funk conversion of jazz, soul, R&B, Caribbean music, you also have this social commentary piece, right?
Yes.
And and if you just think about, like, okay, this is a time period in the 70s, we're still in the Black Power movement, but we are, and even though, like, at this particular time, socially, and the policy was trying to do a war on poverty, right?
Mhm.
LBJ tried to introduce a lot of these different social programs in order for them to extend, welfare programs, to Black folk, like food stamps, like um, TANF, which is like the cash benefits,
Yeah.
and things that actually white people have been getting since the 30s, right? But Black people in
Mhm.
large were not getting. So he said, okay, no, we need to go ahead and take off the barrier, and we need to go ahead and get this into, you know, for everyone, and especially those who have not been able to take advantage of these things, like, historically. But let's also look at who's president in 1984. So, like, I mean, 1974. So we had
OBJ.
LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, who, did this initiative. And then you get Tricky Dicky, right? Tricky
Mhm.
Dicky is here. And what does Tricky Dicky do when he gets into office? Can we all say it together? The war on drugs.
Mhm.
This is the beginning of when we start to see an influx of drugs and alcohol in predominantly Black neighborhoods. Not only are you still experiencing pervasive poverty, but it's also coupled with um, the drowning of the issues that you're having as a community with escapism.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
then on top of that, although these things are happening, and if it's a war on drugs, they say, oh, it's too much heroin in our neighborhoods. It's too much of this particular drug, that particular drug, all these different things that's happening. But you then decide to criminalize these things.
Yep.
And who are the people that's going to be the most affected by the criminalization of these drugs because of this war? Black and brown folk.
Yep.
And that was happening at that time.
Yeah.
So you definitely see like how extreme poverty starts to not start, but has infected Black communities.
Right. And I think it's important that we, when he talks about the bottle, of course, he's talking about alcohol. Now,
Sure,
which had been legal for, after prohibition had been legal
sure,
since like the 1930s.
yeah,
Now, of course, it doesn't mean, of course, anything that is legal can be abused. And
sure,
that's, like you said, it goes to the fact that when you take these resources away, when when there are communities that are economically disadvantaged, they turn to substances even though they are legal, that
mhm,
can be harmful, still harmful to families if they are ingested too much, if they're
yeah,
consumed too much.
yeah,
Now, of course, we advocate for responsible
sure,
consumption of alcohol,
right,
but yes, when there are people who unfortunately through different circumstances can find themselves so depressed that they start living in it. It
mhm,
becomes such an escape to the point where it does impact their families.
right,
Kids start to see that,
right,
and it impacts every aspect of their lives and
mhm.
the lives of the people around them. And that's when it becomes dangerous.
I mean, just think about
Mm.
like the beginning of the song where he says, "See that black boy running there, running scared. His old man is in the bottle." I mean,
Mhm.
like so not only are we dealing with um, the father
Mhm.
alcoholism, um, possibly we can like do like a whole bunch of different things. You can do a whole bunch of pontifications of what led him there in the first place, but I'm pretty sure
Right.
that we can get a good handle on it.
Right.
But but like oftentimes if he's running scared, it could be, and I know I've seen
It-
this, like
yeah.
personally, people who consume too much alcohol and they don't become happy drunks, they become violent.
Yes, they become very violent, and
Yeah.
they start physically abusing
Hmm.
they start abusing their family, especially especially kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
There are a lot of kids who have, been, especially if their parents are consuming too much alcohol, they do get violent and they
They
start
do.
yeah.
They do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So many instances.
So many instances, and and like as everyone basically in the community knows, I love my wine,
Mhm.
but but it can't be to the point where that is being the overarching portion of like this substance precedes you as an individual, right?
Right. Yeah.
And as we also know, when alcohol gets mixed in with other things, all types
Mhm.
of what tomfuckery could happen,
Yep.
right? And not only is this a commentary, I would definitely say, concerning some of the outlier issues that could drive a person to alcoholism and even drug substance use. um, we can also look at it as a cautionary tale to say, like, hey, you know, look what you are doing. He said, "Look, now you think it's a crime time after time, living in a bottle, right?" So it's also like, look at you and how this is affecting your family, how this is affecting your children, how this is affecting your relationships, right? How this could be an issue going forward if this is not something that you take care of. I I want to big like a quick story for what happened when Friday evening. Shout out to the line. I was on the line with Forrest Valkai this past Friday, and I and we those who are watch it, I'm going to refer to the second call that we had with a young man. Well, he was younger than me, uh who was talking about, like, how um he females don't necessarily like to be corrected, and how females don't like to be accountable for their actions and can cause issues in a relationship, right? And and the further that we got into the call, and to be honest with you, like, half the time I was just, really just like clowning this man. I think that one time I even called him Jesse Lee Peterson, and then all of a sudden screamed out beta. But regardless of that, because I ain't got no sense. But one of the things that he said towards the end of the call, which made a ton of sense, is that he admitted that he himself has not been known to always actually possess emotional stability, and was able to actually extend that to his partner. And I was just telling him, well, maybe, just maybe, the problem is not that the female has the issue here. Maybe it's you.
Yeah, that part.
Yeah, and and you need to start to explore the reasons why you are not emotionally available to your partner. You know,
Right. And just acknowledging it one time is not, is not
right.
enough. But
I
yeah.
mean, it's a start,
Yeah.
but it's not. I mean, but but you got to do the work from there. I know that he screamed out that he did go to therapy after me and Forrest was like, yeah, you need therapy, my brother. And then he was like, but I did go to therapy. And Forrest was like, go back. I was like, I said, it didn't stick.
It ain't
Try
working.
again. I mean, but like, but we also have to just think about, like, going back to the song of itself, and like the commentary about it, that oftentimes indulging in these things can also be a stumbling block for people to actually be able to be emotionally stable and emotionally available in relationships, right?
Right.
and and
Right.
and they feel like that the only way that they're able to be a fun, amiable, a life of the party type person is that they got to be in the bottle,
Yep.
and that is, and that's the issue right there. $1.09, get your bottle of wine. I'm about to say, where you
Mhm.
buying $1.09 bottle of wine? I'm pretty sure it tastes terrible, but but I'm saying this is 1974. But
Right.
but still, like, the whole issue of really having to get into some type of substance use in order for you to feel free says a lot.
Yeah.
um and it's definitely a lot to unpack, and especially, we do see statistically neighborhoods and communities that are socially and economically depressed have a tendency to have higher uses of substances.
Right.
And if anything, I would do a deep think about this particular song actually being an observation of Gil to say that is a huge problem that is being seen in the community where this is the case.
Yes, and it takes me back to I love how these all tie together, right?
Hmm.
These songs in particular, because we have such a paradox of this very, very important and heavy subject that has been placed to such a phenomenal music, right? And it's something you could dance to. It's
Hmm.
something that really gets your rhythm. It really gets us going. But how do we, we've seen this time and time again, where when something is put to such a fantastic beat, is
Hmm.
the message missed?
Yes.
And then that also ties into how show business and entertainment business exploits that, right? You can put something to a very, very good, and I'm sure it wasn't intentional by the artist, but the people picked on that funky bass line,
Yeah.
those tropical and Caribbean sounding rhythms, and it's like we are dancing to it.
Hmm.
We are dancing to it, and it's just like, are we listening to the are we listening to the message?
Yeah.
And so it's just like, man, we see, and it's not the first time. We think about songs like "Don't Ride the White Horse," right? That has
Hmm.
such a bad melody. That has such a badass melody to it, but we
Hmm.
know what they're talking about.
Oh yeah,
We
yeah.
know what they're
That
talking
was
about.
another staple. That was like a transition song in house in house music
Mhm.
too. Yeah, that
Yeah. And
was
then,
blowing up the
one
pitch.
of
Right.
yeah,
Go
yes.
ahead.
And then one of Marvin Gaye's lesser known songs on the What's Going On album, even though it was just, oh my God, Flying
Oh my
High in the
God. In
Friendly
the friendly
Skies.
skies,
Yes.
girl, that
And
was my
so
joint.
many references to like substance abuse,
Yeah.
and how it was put into song, how
Yeah.
it was placed into something that could resonate
Hmm.
to people, but depending on the sound of it, it's like, are people really listening? But then you have even bringing it to today, right?
Hmm.
You got, now I've never really heard this song by Migos, the Molly Percocet, and I'm like, y'all are
I
actually
have.
saying this in a positive. I'm like,
Yeah,
whoa,
yeah.
wait a minute,
I have.
like,
It's
wait
a
a
catchy
minute,
beat. I tell you, like I
yeah,
was rolling like this way, like when I was listening to it, that what they call it, that's that YN music right
yeah,
there.
right. And I'm like, and
Yeah,
far be it from me, we don't ever want to police the expressions of folks, right?
exactly.
But at the same time, we have to ask ourselves these questions, especially
Mm,
when we have, historically powerful music,
yeah.
like excuse me, what Gil Scott-Heron and others have produced. And
Hmm.
sadly, he was a casualty of, he was a cocaine. He was a drug addict.
Yeah.
He did fall victim to substance abuse.
Yeah.
And for whatever, it's unfortunately prevalent in this industry, and especially in music. We
Hmm.
know so many musicians
Yeah.
who became consumed by substance abuse of many kinds.
Yep.
So it was also, I think it was almost like a self cautionary tale
Yes.
in his case.
Yeah.
So there are just so many layers
Hmm.
to all of it, that I think deserves more, more of, more discussion, and more just like really
Yeah.
thinking more about it
Yeah.
than
Yeah, I think I mean, I would say this overall, like when we look at and explore these songs and the artists that perform them, it definitely provokes reflection
Mhm.
and thought and how all of these things, well, not only what were some of the motivating factors that created this art in the first place, but how does it speak to us as a community, and also how it speaks to individuals today.
Mhm.
And if I would say, even though, like, Gil Scott Heron falling um prey to substance use, and he's not, and as you also say, he's not the only one.
Oh yeah.
um it definitely speaks to a lot of these different layers that you were speaking of, that needs to be pulled back and examined, and really, like, ask ourselves, like, critical questions on how are we affecting things for the better, especially like when these are topics that these artists talked about years ago.
Mhm.
And why is this still a thing? Why are we still having people still in the bottle? Why are we still, playing songs like "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised," even though that came out in 1970 and we're in 2026?
Right.
Why are we still dealing with, artists very, as of recently, still being exploited, um, and a lot of them happen to be, people of color, especially Black artists, when it comes to, like, when it comes to the work that they create, and sometimes they're even exploited by their own people who actually get into a certain area in the industry, like Diddy did.
Yeah.
Um, so and R. Kelly did, and countless others, right? So yeah, these are definitely things that needs to be examined, and I hope, if you would, please come back to do another Inception of Protest Songs where we
Oh, of
can even
course.
dive into these things further.
Woo, absolutely. Yeah, I'm
Yay!
always down to talk music and history and revolution and such.
And
Yes.
Black Liberation. Black
Yes.
Liberation. Yes.
Yes.
Well, Mandisa, thank you so much for joining me on the Roots Matter to have this very important talk, and also, even having fun and listening to some music, and really just giving your thoughts on it. always a pleasure. You know that the Roots Matter is always open for you to come by anytime you yabba dabba want.
Thank
And
you. Absolutely.
and of course, like you are my BN mentor.
Aw.
You are the reason that I am even saying words on the YouTubes and the interwebs. You and Ethan Michael are the ones who definitely opened the door and opportunity for me. So I really do appreciate you very much. And also
Oh yeah.
just being the person that if you Google Black Atheist, your picture shows up.
Aw.
I will never let that go. I
No,
just we
no,
gonna be like in our
clearly.
80s and 90s, and I'm gonna be like, man, Deja, you know, every time they Google your name, that's Black Atheist, your name come up. You know that, girl.
Uh.
You subscribe, okay? Put your hearing aid on, girl, so you can hear me.
So silly.
But yeah, tell the people, the ones who stuck around. I know that we had like some people that probably moved out over to go to Bad Science, but
Yeah,
the ones who have
shout
stuck
out to
around,
Maya.
shout out to Maya. Yeah, shout out to Maya. And I know that people are going to possibly like listen back to the stream. So shout out to y'all that's going to actually play it back as well. But yeah, tell the people um who you be as far as like you know member of the community, and also where they can find you and how they can support the work that you do.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, you can visit the website of Black Nonbelievers, blacknonbelievers.org, to follow, support, subscribe to us on YouTube, attend our events. We have BNC Con coming up. We will be doing the Revival of Reason again in June in Atlanta. And please do, if you are in the Chicagoland area and you would like to be a part of the BN affiliate group there, also Detroit, shout out to Kelly. And also here in Atlanta in ATL, where we first got started, we're celebrating 15 years all year as an organization.
And
You
Charlotte,
can, yes, and Charlotte. Shout out to Tina and Charlotte.
yes.
So yes, and you can also, if you would like to read that entry from 2021 on how revolution is fetishized, it is a public post on my Patreon. So you can find me at Mandisa Latifa on Patreon. You can support my work. I do a lot of musing on personal issues as well as talking about community things, and so you get to hear me be just a little bit more see me just a little bit more unfiltered. That and yes, please do subscribe and donate and support everywhere that we're being. You can find being. So yeah, that's pretty much us in a nutshell. And of course, like and subscribe to Cynthia's channel, The Roots Matter, so that
Yeah, okay.
we can continue to grow our network as especially Black women content creators. So yes.
Yes, yes, absolutely. All of that in a bag of chips. Guys, thank you so much, Mandisa, for sharing that. And yes, make sure that you guys do head on over to blacknonbelievers.org/donate. Give your dollars as well as your time. Also, I know that Mandisa was saying that we are still looking to expand Black Nonbelievers as well. So if you are interested in possibly starting an affiliate in your area, please reach out that way as well. Guys, this has been a great show. And I am so pleased that we were able to have this conversation. The lives don't stop. We are taking a break next Sunday, but on March the 8th, we are going to be back doing another live stream with Volsi. So he is a an atheist commentator, and who talks about religion and politics, and also does work with Black Atheist Rants as well. Very good, brother. So make sure that you guys tune in to that stream and check it out. We're anticipating also doing another panel discussion in mid March. We're going to put that together. So make sure that you guys check that out. And also, I will be periodically posting commentary on the Roots Matter. So please make sure that you are staying tuned for that as well. And the way that you can do that is liking this stream, sharing it on your platforms, subscribing to the channel, and also hitting the bell icon below so that you can get a notification every time that I am uploading a video or when the Roots Matter go live. Okay. We're looking to possibly even expanding where we can actually stream to other platforms as well. And there is going to be a time period where our elusive executive producer may be coming on camera to do some work on his own on the Roots Matter. So please stay tuned for that as well. All right. So, guys, again, thank you so much for coming this evening. And as I like to say to all of my viewers, stay grounded, stay hydrated, stay aware, and remember, at the end of the day, the roots matter. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Night.